September 30th, 2008. SWAT officers storm a Bank of America parking lot in Monroe, Washington. Suspect description crackling through radios. Male, yellow vest, blue shirt, and painter's mask. Simple enough. But when they scan the scene, they freeze. Standing in front of the bank are 15 men, and every single one matches the description perfectly. The officers can't shoot. They can't even identify who they're looking for. One cop tackles a man to the ground. "I'm just here for a landscaping job," he screams. Another grabs a second suspect, who points at a third dressed identically. And somewhere in the chaos, the real robber slips away with $400,000 in cash. The craziest part? Every one of those suspects answered the same Craigslist ad. They had no idea they were walking decoys in a heist engineered to break the police. How did one ad paralyze an entire SWAT team? And what finally brought the mastermind down? Few months earlier. Anthony Curcio isn't some hardened career criminal plotting from a basement. He's a 28-year-old former college football star watching his life disintegrate one bill at a time. Back in his early 20s, Curcio had NFL dreams and the talent to chase them. Then, a devastating knee injury ended his athletic career and introduced him to prescription painkillers. The painkillers introduced him to addiction. By 2008, Curcio is hemorrhaging $15,000 every single month on opioids while his real estate business collapses around him. Creditors are circling like vultures, and his marriage is fracturing under the pressure. The walls are closing in, and he's running out of legal options. In his desperation, a single thought crystallizes into certainty: rob an armored truck. But Curcio won't touch a gun. He knows armed robbery multiplies sentences and violence attracts federal attention. Too much risk of someone dying, including himself. Instead of brute force, he approaches the heist like an engineering puzzle. Inputs, outputs, variables to isolate and control. For 90 consecutive days, he stakes out a Brinks armored car that services the Bank of America branch in Monroe. He sits in his car with a notepad, logging arrival times down to the second. He maps every security camera's field of view and identifies the blind spots. He charts the guard's movements like a biologist tracking animal behavior. When does he exit the truck? Which door does he use? How long are his arms full of cash bags, and what's his sightline at each stage? By September, Curcio can predict that truck's schedule with more accuracy than the driver himself. He knows the guard will wheel a dolly stacked with duffel bags toward the entrance at approximately 11:02 a.m. every Tuesday. He knows the guard's arms will be occupied for roughly 45 seconds during the transfer. He knows the man's peripheral vision will be blocked by the load he's carrying. His surveillance reveals a golden window of vulnerability: the 45 seconds when the guard wheels cash toward the entrance. He has the arms occupied, the vision focused forward, and he is physically unable to draw a weapon or radio for help. A fast ambush during this window could net hundreds of thousands in seconds. The problem? Police response time. Monroe isn't Los Angeles. It's a small city where cops know the streets. Officers will swarm the scene within 3 to 4 minutes of any triggered alarm. Curcio doesn't need a faster getaway car. He needs something different. He needs to break the system that sends cops after him in the first place. Late one night, he scribbles through the logic, working backward from the problem. Law enforcement operates on what the military calls the OODA loop: observe, orient, decide, act. It's the decision cycle that lets trained officers respond to threats in seconds. Fast, but not instantaneous. There's a gap between observation and action, a gap that can be exploited. If Curcio can overload that loop at the observation stage, creates so much visual noise that officers literally cannot identify their target. Their entire decision-making process shatters. They'll be stuck observing and re-observing while he vanishes. The question becomes, what kind of distraction freezes an entire police force without causing casualties? A bomb threat is unpredictable. It might evacuate the area before he can act. A diversionary explosion risks killing innocent people. Then, scrolling through Craigslist job postings at 2 a.m., something clicks. What if he flooded the crime scene with human decoys? Not accomplices who might flip under interrogation, unwitting pawns who don't even know they're part of a heist. Strangers who show up dressed exactly like him, wearing the same clothes, the same mask, the same goggles. The cops arrive and find 15 identical suspects instead of one. They'd have to detain everyone, question everyone, and sort through every single matching figure while the real target evaporates into thin air. It sounds like a Hollywood twist. But Curcio sketches it out on paper, running through the variables, and the math actually works. He's found his exploit, a vulnerability in the system's ability to process visual information. Now he just needs to recruit his decoys without them ever knowing they've been recruited. What happens when you post a fake job listing that accidentally creates the perfect alibi for a crime? And how does a man with no accomplices plan an escape route that puts him underground, literally, while cops search every street above? September 2008. He sits at his computer and crafts the post with surgical precision, every word calculated to attract the exact type of person he needs. The headline screams $28.50 per hour. Laborers needed ASAP. In 2008, that wage is eye-popping, nearly triple the federal minimum wage. It's the kind of number that makes a job seeker stop mid-scroll. The listing describes a city cleanup project requiring immediate availability. Simple landscaping work on behalf of a municipal maintenance contract. A great pay with one condition: you must wear the provided uniform. The uniform requirements read like a safety checklist: blue shirt for visibility, yellow vest per OSHA guidelines, work boots, safety goggles to protect against debris, and painter's mask for dust. It's oddly specific for a day of pulling weeds, strangely detailed for basic landscaping. But who questions the dress code when the money is that good? Desperate people don't interrogate opportunity, they seize it. Curcio lists the meeting point: Bank of America parking lot, Monroe. The time? At 11 a.m. on September 30th. That's the exact window when the Brinks truck makes its weekly cash delivery. He schedules the ad to go live 72 hours before the heist. Just enough time for responses to flood in, not enough for anyone to grow suspicious. The emails arrive within hours. A laid-off handyman looking for any work he can find. A college student hunting side cash between classes. An unemployed landscaper who hasn't seen a steady paycheck in months. Curcio replies to each one with the same cheerful confirmation: "You're hired. Be there at 11 a.m. wearing exactly what I described." He never meets them in person, never calls them on the phone, never provides a company name that could be traced, just digital breadcrumbs leading strangers directly into his trap. On the morning of September 30th, at least a dozen people show up at the bank parking lot wearing matching outfits. Imagine the scene. You pull in expecting a city supervisor with a clipboard and a work assignment. Instead, you find a cluster of strangers wearing the exact same blue shirts and yellow vests, all glancing around with puzzled expressions, each one waiting for whoever posted the ad. Did the boss show up yet? Anyone know what we're supposed to be doing? A few chuckle nervously at the coincidence. Must be the company uniform. They check their phones, they make awkward small talk, but they have absolutely no idea they're standing in a crime scene that hasn't happened yet. Curcio watches this scene from nearby, probably fighting to keep a straight face. His Trojan horse has rolled through the gates and positioned itself perfectly. Every single one of these job seekers is about to become a suspect in a federal robbery investigation, unwitting human camouflage for the real thief. They are his mirror maze, his walking shell game, his exploit of human pattern recognition. Minutes before the Brinks truck arrives, Curcio slips into the crowd wearing the same blue shirt, yellow vest, goggles, and painter's mask. He blends in instantly. He's not hidden in the traditional sense. He's hidden by being everywhere at once. The trap is armed and waiting. Everything is in position. The Craigslist applicants mill around the parking lot, checking their watches. The Brinks truck is due any minute. Curcio stands among them, heart pounding beneath the vest, face concealed. He's engineered the ultimate shell game on a live battlefield. In moments, $400,000 in cash will roll into this parking lot. A swarm of identical decoys will surround the scene. How does Curcio plan to disappear from a scene that's about to be surrounded by cops? And why does his escape depend entirely on something he built in the dark with his bare hands? September 30th, 2008. Late morning, sunshine warming the asphalt. The Brinks armored truck rumbles into the Bank of America lot at 11:02 a.m., right on schedule, exactly when Curcio's 3 months of surveillance predicted. The driver parks in the usual spot. The armed guard climbs out and begins loading cash bags onto a wheeled dolly. His arms strain under the weight of $400,000 in bundled bills destined for the vault. He has no idea he's walking into a meticulously planned ambush. A few yards away, fiddling with landscaping equipment, stands a man in a painter's mask and yellow vest. Another maintenance worker, as far as anyone can tell. Curcio is in position. The guard pushes the dolly toward the entrance, both hands gripping the handle, vision focused straight ahead. He doesn't notice the maintenance worker stepping casually into his path until it's far too late to react. In one fluid motion, Curcio closes the distance and blasts a canister of pepper spray directly into the guard's face. The effect is immediate. The guard staggers backward, hands flying to his burning eyes, screaming in pain. 2 heavy duffel bags, 40 pounds each, tumble off the cart and hit the asphalt. Curcio scoops both bags in one motion, 80 pounds of cash, and breaks into a sprint. But he's not running toward the street. He's not heading for a getaway car. He's sprinting toward the wooded strip behind the bank, toward the brush lining Woods Creek. For a heartbeat, the lot is frozen, just a guard screaming, bystanders gasping, confused landscapers staring at each other. Then, the alarm screams, and pandemonium erupts. Civilians scatter for cover. The Brinks driver fumbles for his radio. Within 90 seconds, Monroe police are screeching in from 3 directions. Officers spill from cruisers, rifles raised. They've trained for this. Contain the area, identify the suspect, take him down. Dispatch has broadcast the description. Blue shirt, yellow vest, painter's mask. Find him. Stop him. But what greets them is bedlam. A cop grabs a bystander in a yellow vest and throws him to the ground. The man stutters, "I'm just here for a job." Around them, 15 identical suspects raise their hands in panic. Another officer corners a second man against a sedan, weapon drawn. That worker frantically points at a third dressed identically. It's him! I don't even know what's happening. The scene descends into chaos. Decoys everywhere, suspects in every direction. No way to tell which yellow vest hides a thief and which hides an innocent job seeker. The SWAT team holds fire, no target clarity. Shooting into this crowd would guarantee a lawsuit. Every second of hesitation buys Curcio another 20 yards. Radios crackle with panicked chatter. Multiple subjects in identical clothing, unable to confirm target. Commanders bark back, "Detain everyone in a yellow vest. We'll sort it out later." But later is too late. The damage is done. By the time officers begin zip-tying confused landscapers, Curcio has vanished entirely. He didn't run toward the roadblocks forming on Main Street. He bolted into the brush lining Woods Creek and dropped completely out of sight. Above ground, helicopters scramble. K-9 units deploy. A perimeter forms around the bank. Below ground, hidden beneath a canopy of trees and brush, Curcio is already moving. What did Curcio bury along that creek bed in the weeks before the robbery? And why does his escape depend on arm strength rather than a fast car? While sirens wail and roadblocks snap shut across Monroe, Anthony Curcio floats upstream on an inflated inner tube, pulling himself hand over hand along a hidden cable submerged beneath Woods Creek. The water is cold, September in Washington, but he barely notices. This isn't improvisation. He engineered this escape route over weeks, wading through the creek after midnight, hand-dredging a clear path through mud and debris. His original plan called for a jet ski, fast, dramatic, cinematic. But a test run failed spectacularly. The creek proved too shallow, the ski sputtering out in knee-deep water. So he pivoted to something quieter. A cable and pulley system anchored upstream, hidden beneath the waterline where no one would think to look. Now that system carries him away at roughly jogging speed, completely unseen. Above him, the tree canopy blocks any helicopter's view. On either bank, cops form search lines extending outward from the bank, standard protocol for a fleeing suspect, not inward along a creek most don't even know exists. Curcio moves against the current, away from every expected escape route, slipping under the perimeter like a prisoner crawling through a tunnel while guards search above. 200 yards, 2 football fields, of silent, cable-assisted floating. The only sounds, slosh of water and his own breathing. Overhead, distant sirens, shouting, helicopter rotors. Down here, beneath the brush, strange peace. By the time he reaches his extraction point, the police perimeter is behind him, literally behind him, oriented in the wrong direction. Curcio hauls himself ashore beneath a secluded footbridge behind a strip mall, dripping and shivering, but utterly invisible to anyone searching for him. No one is screaming here. Just another quiet afternoon. He ditches the inner tube in the bushes. Then, the final transformation. Every piece of his disguise, blue shirt, vest, goggles, mask, even a wig to alter his silhouette, is attached with Velcro for this moment. He rips everything off in one motion, like a stuntman shedding a costume between takes. Underneath, plain shorts and a t-shirt. The notorious man in the yellow vest becomes just another guy walking through a parking lot. He stuffs the costume into a garbage bag he stashed days earlier. A getaway car idles nearby, driven by someone Curcio trusts. He circles to the rear, and the trunk pops open. Curcio climbs in, pulls the duffel bags in after him, and the trunk lid closes, cloaking him in darkness. The car rolls smoothly into midday traffic, merging with dozens of vehicles heading away from downtown. Any police cruiser racing past would see nothing, just a sedan with a couple up front. Minutes later, in a quiet corner far from the bank, Curcio slides out of the trunk into the passenger seat. He and the driver share a breathless, disbelieving laugh. They can't quite process what happened. As far as they know, they've just pulled off the perfect crime. Back at the bank, absolute disaster for law enforcement. Officers still sort decoys from witnesses, zip-tying innocents, and releasing them one by one. The guard receives treatment for pepper spray burns. Detectives comb the scene and find discarded items near the creek, a mask and wig, but no fingerprints, no DNA, No usable evidence. A K-9 unit circles the lot, struggling to isolate a scent from ground contaminated with 15 strangers. By afternoon, every cop in Monroe knows the robber escaped clean. News outlets dub it the Where's Waldo robbery. Some call the perpetrator a real-life DB Cooper with an inner tube, DB Tuber. They laugh. The public is amused and amazed. Law enforcement is humiliated. Curcio walks freely with $400,000, probably planning how to spend it. He beat the system. But systems adapt. And the one variable Curcio never calculated is already watching from the shadows, has been watching for weeks. The FBI officially labels it the almost perfect crime. Federal agents join local police to hunt the phantom in the yellow vest, pooling resources, reviewing every scrap of evidence. But every lead dead ends. The discarded disguise yields no usable DNA, too contaminated by creek water. No fingerprints on anything recovered. Security footage shows 15 identical figures milling around before chaos erupts, useless for identification. Investigators interview Craigslist decoys one by one, but they're as shocked as police. None ever met the poster face to face. They were pawns who didn't know a game was being played. Curcio accounted for technology. He accounted for timing. He accounted for human psychology. He built redundancies into redundancies. Yet he missed one thing, a witness he never knew existed. In weeks before the robbery, Curcio ran practice drills to fine-tune his timing and test his escape route. One afternoon, as part of a dry run, he stashed clothes and a mask behind a dumpster near the bank, hiding the disguise to verify the location worked. He was careful, methodical. He checked for cameras. He scanned for obvious observers. What he didn't notice was the homeless man camping 50 feet away in a patch of scrub brush, watching the world go by because watching was all he had to do. That homeless man saw something that caught his attention. Maybe Curcio's car circling the lot, or the suspicious way this well-dressed guy retrieved a hidden bundle from behind a trash bin. Whatever triggered it, something didn't sit right. While most people walk past homeless individuals without a second glance, treating them as invisible fixtures, this particular man did the opposite. He paid attention. And he scribbled Curcio's license plate on a scrap of paper, just in case. After the robbery, word spreads through Monroe that the FBI is desperate for leads. The homeless man steps forward with his crumpled note and tells investigators what he witnessed weeks earlier. A guy in a nice car, hiding what looked like a disguise in advance of something. The plate number runs through federal databases and returns a name. Anthony Curcio, 28 years old. No violent criminal record, but a history of financial trouble and prescription fraud charges. The ghost suddenly has a face. The FBI doesn't rush in for an immediate arrest. They put Curcio under 24-hour surveillance, cameras snapping photographs of his every movement. They watch him spend money too freely for a man with crushing debt. They follow him to Las Vegas, maybe laundering cash, maybe just celebrating. They bide their time, building a case. Curcio, for his part, has no idea. He sees news coverage calling the robber a genius and probably grins. He has no clue an invisible net is tightening. The final piece falls at a gas station. Agents watch from an unmarked vehicle as Curcio pumps gas, casually sips from a plastic water bottle, screws the cap on, and tosses it in the trash. The moment his car is out of sight, agents swoop in and retrieve the bottle. On it, saliva, DNA. In the FBI lab, they compare the genetic profile to material recovered from the sweat-soaked mask near Woods Creek. Perfect match. The almost perfect crime now has a prosecutable suspect. A SWAT team, this one with a single, clear target, moves in on an autumn afternoon. Curcio steps out of a brand new luxury SUV bought with heist money. Federal agents surround him before he takes 3 steps. Guns drawn, badges flashed. The man who paralyzed an entire tactical response with his shell game of decoys now faces officers immune to his tricks. He surrenders without resistance. Nowhere left to run. In interrogation, Curcio learns the truth. A homeless man he never noticed, scribbling a license plate he never saw, cracked the entire case. He'd accounted for surveillance cameras and their blind spots. He'd accounted for police response times and tactical procedures. Everything except an outlier he deemed invisible, a person society ignores, living on the margins, who happened to be watching. The person everyone overlooks became the person who brought down the mastermind. Curcio pleads guilty and receives 6 years in federal prison. The legend of the Craigslist robber gains its final chapter. A fake job ad, an army of unwitting decoys, an inner tube escape through a hand-dredged creek, and a homeless Samaritan who noticed what no one else did. It's a story so strange, it sounds fictional. But it happened. Every detail. Here's the lesson Curcio learned too late. The same lesson that plays out again and again in stories like this. You can engineer every variable you can measure. You can defeat systems, outthink protocols, manipulate crowds, and exploit vulnerabilities no one else even sees. But you cannot predict the human element, the person who shouldn't have been watching, the note that shouldn't have been written, the variable that refuses to stay invisible. The perfect crime isn't the one with the cleverest plan, it's the one that accounts for every observer. And there's always an observer you didn't count. If you want to see what happens when another criminal builds an airtight plan and still gets caught by the one thing he couldn't control, watch the video on screen right now. Because the pattern repeats, and the ending is never the one they expect.